No, many, many times to Ecuador and Venezuela.
This is not good. Next time you come to Colombia, please let me know in advance in order to organize a trip around.
Okay, we're live now, so let me introduce, but you're on for that, yes.
Yeah.
So, we're live, and let me introduce you. What the F is going on in Latin America? Code Pink's weekly YouTube program of hot news out of Latin America and the Caribbean. We broadcast every Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, with tonight being a special edition of What the F is going on in Latin America, live from Bogota, Colombia. On Wednesday, April 26, Colombians initiated a national strike opposing President Duque's proposed tax reform bill to raise the value-added tax in Colombia. The most significant protests have been witnessed in Cali, Bogota, and Medellin, with more than 20 deaths and hundreds injured. The protests forced President Iván Duque to withdraw the proposed legislation on Monday. Duque said earlier that tax increases were necessary to respond to the economic crisis brought on by COVID-19. But the bill caused outrage among many Colombians who say they already are struggling to feed their families and buy essential goods during the pandemic. Colombia's gross domestic product saw its sharpest crash in half a century, with the pandemic driving up unemployment. So to talk with us this evening, I'm so honored to introduce with you tonight Victor de Currea-Lugo. He is joining us from Bogota, Colombia this evening. He's an author and a journalist, and has been a political and social activist in the streets of Colombia for the past 30 years, and has been reporting from the streets in Bogota this past week. So welcome, Victor. It's an honor to meet you and have you on our program this evening.
Thank you so much for the invitation, and I hope this program will help people around Latin America to understand more or less what is going on in my country.
So let's start. Why don't you tell us a bit about what you've been witnessing in the streets since last Wednesday, and then give us a bit of background as to why this proposed tax bill just basically inflamed a citizenship that's already frustrated with the economy and the government.
Well, we have been with several demonstrations around not only the capital, where I am, but also in other regions, especially in the city of Cali, but also in Medellin, Bucaramanga, in different regions of Colombia. The people has been in the streets asking for justice, asking for to stop a tax reform proposed by the government. But this is not just spontaneous issues. What is more important to understand is that, first of all, Colombia has been involved in an armed conflict during 60 years. But Colombia have one of the biggest gap between the rich people and the poor people. The Gini index is one of the 5 biggest in the world. But also the concentration of the poverty of the property of the land is in only few hands. Means we can analyze the structural issues. Second one, to develop the idea, is the context from 2018, means the beginning of the government of the current President Duque, who destroyed the peace process and who increased the neoliberalism policy. And the third circle, let's say, like the novel of Dante, is the pandemic. The really terrible administration of the pandemic issues. With these 3 elements is the reason why people are in the streets.
So it's the pandemic, and with the tax, the proposed tax reform, or the increase in the value-added tax, it was pretty significant. It went from like less than 10% to almost 20%, or that was the proposal. I mean, it's really almost impossible to believe a government would even consider initiating a tax increase when the economy is the worst it's been, and people are unemployed. There's no access to, most people have no access to vaccines or healthcare. How do you reason a government trying to impose a tax increase right now?
Well, let's precise that the government has realized already 2 tax reforms. One of them, 2 of them before the pandemic in the year 2019. Means the government doesn't want to feel what is going on in the society. They continue with this logic of the neoliberalism that the people have the capacity to pay, and they will not say anything. As you mentioned before, this is totally true. They try to apply a new tax for rice, coffee, sugar, 19%. In this way, you know, it's many people in Colombia only drink 1 coffee with sugar in the morning with 1 bread. And, you know, it's like really to punish the people for some silly measures. I don't want to use bad words, taken previously. You know, the government of Colombia, when it started the pandemic, they decided to support the banks. And they gave to the financial sector a lot of money. They decide to buy airplanes, military airplanes. They decide to support this kind of HMO, this kind of intermediary of the health sector, but not to support the hospital and the clinics. Means all the measures taken only increase the gap between the rich and the poor people. And this is really, I cannot understand how they don't see the reality, what is going on in the field.
So when you talk about funding for the hospitals, we're talking about government funding of public health facilities?
Well, our health system is totally privatized, and we have an intermediary between the hospital and clinics and the patients. Now, at the beginning of the pandemic, I am a physician, it's in my first degree. We demand from the state to support the clinic and the hospital. They didn't. And we make a research last year about the labor condition, and we found 3 elements. 1, increasing of the labor responsibility. Second one, the working time now is longer, and the decreasing of the salary. You know, many hospitals took the decision to say, okay, but we are in a pandemic, we will pay you 10% less or even 20% less, but you have to work more. Some people, some medical personnel had to buy their own security equipment because the government didn't want to bring them elementary issues. And this is part of the crisis, but also we demand the need to prioritize the people, and they want to prioritize the market. Just let me give you a clear example. We had last year 3, let's say, Friday markets, 3, how you say, Black Friday days, 3, just because the government want to reactivate the economy. We propose to develop subsidies to the poverty people, the poor people, but the government insists to prioritize the market open rather than the stopping of the pandemic.
So this is, I mean, what we're listening to, and it's fascinating me, like we talked about just before we went live, that it's a tragedy to see what's happening in Colombia, but in the other sense, so many of us who have been watching the neoliberal project expand through the Americas, it's a miracle to see people in the streets in Colombia. You know, there are certain countries where, you know, we know what's happening on the ground, and we're watching, you know, a more progressive movement build. But this has been really a big surprise and extraordinarily inspiring, despite the violence, to see this in Colombia. Can we talk a little bit about those demographics who are in the streets? Who is in the streets? What people? are we seeing?
First of all, we have a long experience with the social struggle. Unfortunately, because of the armed conflict, many of our leaders has been killed. We are still suffering the consequences, and some question has not answered yet. Just let me give you an example of level of violence in Colombia. Just during these years, we had 32 massacres, 32 massacres. And the former guerrilla group FARC, who signed the peace agreement, 272 of their members has been killed. Now, when you go to the streets, you found mainly students, young people, women, especially women, trade unions, indigenous communities. It's like amazing. You cannot define with one word who is in the street. In the street are the Colombian people. It's not just the trade unions. It's not that the students. It's everyone. Yesterday, for instance, I was almost crying. See I don't know how to say in English, recyclator, the people who collect to recycle issues in the street. They organize a group. Okay.
Recycling.
And recycling. Thank you so much. And they were doing part of the demonstration. When you see them asking that we are not garbage, we are society. When you see homeless people, say we are part of the society. When you see really elderly people supporting the demonstration, just moving the flag of the Colombian flag from the windows, from the different buildings, is really, really amazing. But also, as we found in Facebook, a lot of profiles of people, member of the army with the uniform, say we are not planning to kill civilians. We are not planning to support this level of repression. Who is the person in the street? Is everyone. And in the same way, we cannot say this is responsibility of A or B political party. It's the society really fed up. The people are really fed up with the measures taken by the government.
This is, wow, to see an entire society upset and protesting. It's profound. You mentioned just now about the police and the military. Today on your website, and we should share that, we'll share that address with our viewers. You have a fabulous, you have a fabulous photo gallery of police and military personnel stating that they are part of the people and aren't seeking to harm the people. Can you talk a little bit about the men and women you interviewed and this position that they have? It's quite extraordinary.
Well, it's Colombia. Okay, let me precise two elements. And sorry to go to the always to the context issues, please. The Colombian police forces are not so far from the Colombian army. It means the theoretical approach, the development, even the kind of weapon that they are used weapon in the military way. You can see the Colombian police, for instance, they have counter-guerrilla groups. They use helicopters and rifles and heavy artillery. All of them are part of the police. Means we are not exactly so something that we can call for instance, this kind of police civilian issues or civilian corps, but it's more a military corps, the Colombian police, first of all. And second one, they used to take part in real brutality actions. If you see the level of report by the human rights organization around the world, the Colombian behavior is really horrible. Just let me tell you one example. It's something that we call false positives, but it's really is executions, is to capture civilians, to dress as a member of the guerrilla group and to kill them. We have more than 10,000 cases documented. This level of violence. Now, that some few people among these 500,000 members in the Colombian army say, I don't want to kill civilians, is really huge issue. 2 days ago, Association of Former Military produce a paper, a document, one paper, saying we don't want to support any kind of participation of the army to dissolve the demonstrations in Bogota or Cali or the urban areas. And this, I mean, it's just few cases, but these cases represent that even some people that was educated and the security internal national security internal enemy, now they are thinking that this is not the correct way. Also, in some part of the society, you know, some people wish in the past support the right-wing candidates like the ex-former President Uribe. Now they are in the streets saying, okay, this is not, it was not a correct option. And this is the most important, that you can see different kind of people, but also a political spectrum really, really big.
And so, yeah, I had no idea it was such a lot, that it's basically Colombia and her citizens, her people. You know, this is fabulous what you're sharing with us. And of course, many of our viewers know former President Uribe has been in New York City, and there's been some significant protests there with Colombians living in the diaspora. Let's talk about some of these people, some of these military and police personnel that you have in your photo essay online right now. Today you published this.
We collect this with some friends, and we over double check several times. But just to close this topic, let me say that some of them, this is the preliminary information. We are about to confirm what I will about to say, is that some of them has been captured and they are under detention because of the public declaration in favor of the demonstrations. It's a huge delicate situation, and some organizations are ready to support them. And this is also that I want to say, I am really, touching how many lawyers say in the social nets, in Twitter or in Instagram, say, okay, I'm a lawyer, I am ready for free to help any people in their under legal process because was detained because of the demonstrations. But also people, psychologists say, we would like to support the family of the victim. Some people say, well, I can't help taking care of children. You know, it's amazing. Of course, it's not a generalized. We are not in a big uprising, national and general, but it's the most important demonstration in the history, in the recent history of Colombia. It's really amazing. And the most important that I want to clarify, and the government and the big media try to present the people who is taking part in the demonstration as a delinquent. And the president, the ex-president, the former President Uribe tried to present this delinquent, let's say, between quotation, to terrorists. And in this way, they try to move the focus to the lack of justice, the tax reform, the level of repression, to the war on terror. And this is really important. They put the focus where is the best landscape for the government.
You know, this is not unlike the narrative we hear in the United States also. If you're not for the complete privatization of the economy, you know, you're a terrorist, you're delinquent, you don't want to work, all of that. That's a very, very similar narrative in the US. And of course, the goal is the same, you know, 100% privatization of the economy, that neoliberal model.
Yeah. Now, I want to add another component that is really important, is the level of brutality in the street. I invite you, all the people who is listening to us, to check in the pages of human rights organization in Colombia, the civil organization, and you will see it's amazing the amount of videos made by the civilian, by the society, when you can see a police officer killing in cold blood young people in the street. You can see how many times the demonstration without police has not any violent act. But once the police arrive, you have the violent guarantee. But it's a lot of cases. Last night, one professor, one student of a university who was taking part in one of the demonstrations in a block road were killed and nothing happened. Today, just 4 hours ago, we received information by a senator of the Republic that a truck, plenty of civilians with weapons were killing people. And it suddenly was a military squash close, and they arrived and the civilians escaped, but they discovered military police jackets inside this truck. I mean, there is really a strategy to present the world that the demonstration in Colombia is a vandalization process paid by the drugs dealers, paid by the guerrilla, paid by the terrorism. Then I really beg the people who follow this program to help to spread another version, what is the reality, that we has been killed several during the last days by the government.
You know, it's interesting what you say about the government and the military saying the protesters are funded, trained, being motivated by narco traffickers, and yet all the people in the street want to get rid of their government and refer to their government as a narco trafficking state. So it's I mean, who's whom? I mean, you know, I think most of us, at least most of us in my activist circle, we understand, you know, the drug trade that comes out of Colombia, despite there being 8 U.S. military bases, despite a government, you know, supported by the United States. There's still an enormous amount, well, the majority of the narcotics come from there. So, I mean, it's fascinating to me that both sides seem to be using this narrative.
Yes,
I would
indeed.
argue for the people in the streets, it's not a narrative, it's reality for them. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, that's right, that's right. I mean, one of the biggest problems is to compare narratives, but the most important is come to the street. When I have discussion with some colleagues, last night I have a discussion with a right-wing member of the Senate, and I say, come with me to the street. We can go to the street, and this is the reality. I'm not a postmodern person. I don't believe in several realities or several truths. I believe that the truth is possible to touch in the street, you know, and it's really amazing the level of violence daily. You know, you hear that the police is using a live ammunition. I'm not talking about tear gas. I'm talking about a live ammunition. We have image of the helicopter shooting people. We have image that the mayor of Bogota accepted the helicopters in the ground of 2 schools in the south area of Bogota, as well as the north. This is a deployment when you have an armed conflict. There is not a willing of talk. I cannot say to you, I would like to talk to you, okay, the dialogue, but at the same time, ordering the people to kill civilians, or not to persecute the member of the army that are killing systematically civilians. This is really a big crisis. And the most important is the role of USA. USA has support the Colombian government. The USA has armed the Colombian army. USA has trained the Colombian police officers and officers of the army. Then, in the decision of the President Joe Biden and the capacity to push from the White House, the Colombian government is part of the solution. We are not asking for more violence. We are not asking for more killing. We would like a dialogue. But this negotiation table should be organized with the society and for the society. Now, one of the biggest problems is the negotiation proposal presented by the government is really a bad joke.
This is the proposal by the Colombian government, the current government.
Yeah.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to say, like, for instance, the government organized like the vaccination, and they say, well, we would like to negotiate taking into account the vaccination. People are not asking for the vaccination in the street. They are asking for the health, right to health, respect to the health services. The government say, we would like to recover the economy. Okay, we propose a basic rent to the poor people in order to guarantee some increase, some capacity, economical capacity to the more poor families. You remember in USA how you deal with the crisis in 1929 was the New Deal. Finally, it's more Keynes than Hayek. But here they love Hayek, and I don't know why they hate Keynes. But also they include some points like the non-violence or protect the vulnerable people. Come on, the government has some duties, and they don't have to discuss this duty with the society. They have to fulfill the Constitution. Just it, no more. But the important points about the criminality by the army, about the tax reform, about the access to the health facilities with dignity, the government doesn't want to discuss these points. That are exactly the point that people is asking in the street. They want to divert the debate.
Wow, it's, you know, it's so much of what all of you in Colombia are protesting in the streets is so much of what we should be protesting in the United States as well. You're an inspiring example, perhaps, for many of us. It's
yeah. Maybe we should create a campaign that honestly should be called Colombian Lives Matters.
Colombian Lives Matter. Yes, that's our. So speaking of, so Colombia's Lives Matter and us working together, what would you like to see? What would you ask of me and my fellow activists in the United States? What can we do for Colombia and her people? What would you like to see us do now? What is something that we can? We'll have you back on the show for sure.
Okay, first of all, I would like you to contact the Congress persons, the member of the Senate, and demand from them public statements against the violence by the police forces and the army in the Colombian case. We would like you, please, say to the Colombian government, stop killing civilians. This is our first, at least my first demand. I am part of the civil society organization, but I don't have the mandate to talk on behalf of them, but just to share with you some ideas. First of all, please say to the world, stop killing Colombian people. This is the first one. Second one, we would like that the dialogue will be a mechanism to be established, but without tricks, you know, without traps, without, it's like, try to be honest, try to hear what the people say. And this is also important. One of the biggest things that also the USA can do is propose to the Senate and the Congress to stop the military support to the Colombian army. This is really a huge issue. But I will give you something, well, I don't want to be misinterpreted, but let me tell you something. The Colombian elites and the politicians love to go to Miami and they love to go to New York. You know, and if you withdraw the visa of few of them, they will be in panic, believe me. You know, and his son, like the Minister of Defense, you know, because he is the field responsible of what is going on in the field. The President Duque, because he is responsible also, you know, and once a government announces the possibility to withdraw the visa, they will be really touched. Also, of course, you know, it's something elementary because it's now you can also help us with the USA companies in Colombia. There is a lot of USA companies based in Colombia. Just let me give you an example. Several years ago was a legal discussion because a member of the trade union of Coca-Cola company were killed in Colombia. And there is some evidence which compromise or involve in these crimes the company itself. If you help denouncing how some companies of USA supporting the killing in Colombia, but not only during these days, who has been, it's more than 1,000 social leaders have been killed in the last years. This is amazing. In the 90s, and it's not new, in the 90s, for instance, more than 90% of the trade union leaders in the world were killed in Colombia. It's amazing. If you add, it's not a matter of a statistic, but let me, with all the respect for the other victims of the dictatorship in South America, but if you put together the missing people from Chile, Argentina, Brazil, and Uruguay, Colombia won. Colombia wins. We have 85,000 missing people during our war. It's really amazing, but also the focus of Latin America cannot be the crisis of Venezuela. Okay, we can discuss about Venezuela, but how is possible that Almagro are discussing 2 days ago about what to do with Venezuela? How is possible that the Lima group don't say a word? Yeah, the Lima group doesn't say a word about Venezuela. It's really a shame for the, you know what I try to say.
No, exactly. I don't say anything about Colombia. They're focused on Venezuela when the streets are calm in Venezuela and all of Colombia is protesting. No, it's very clear what the political and economic, what the geopolitical goals are in the manipulation of that narrative. It's so key. And this is something that I think we should be really clear with our audience. And I think many of our viewers, already know this and perhaps agree that really the violence and the repression that is directed as the narrative towards Venezuela is the reality in Colombia. And I can honestly say that because I have been to Venezuela many, many times in the last 10, 15 years and, never experienced there, not once, even despite how difficult life is for many people there, particularly because of the US sanctions placed on the country. But the violence and political and social unrest in Colombia is we haven't seen that. We've seen that where? In other neoliberal countries, Ecuador, Chile, we saw that. Haiti, we see that.
But in Colombia, we have around 1.8 million migrants from Venezuela, and one joke that is a bad joke, I know, common in the social media, in the social nets, is like, okay, we have to be careful because what kind of country we will offer to the Venezuelan migrants? It's like, it's like we are really in pain when you try to compare about Burma, for instance, about the yellow jackets in France and how they get some kind of attention by the press. I really appreciate how the international media now is focusing in the Colombian crisis, but this crisis is unfortunately is not new for us. No. If you see, for instance, the level of poverty, I see that I haven't mentioned, 42% of the people are on the poverty line. 42%, mean 21 million people. And it's really, a real crisis. And at the same time, during this crisis, the government of Duque wanted to give a financial support to the airline Avianca, what is not a Colombian company, and support the biggest companies, but not the small and medium companies. Companies.
Not the people that he wants to tax. The people that he wants to tax have no income to tax.
Yeah, this is not Sweden at all. And exactly. And I think that this is important. The how you focus the media, also demand from your media to pay attention to the Colombian crisis. I put in my website a letter. I will send you this letter in English, explaining in 3 pages the origin, the cause, and the development of our struggle. We have this letter already in French, Germany, Netherlands, Italian, and please try to say the word that the government has been killed civilians in Colombia.
That would be fantastic for you to share that with us. And I'll be sure for our viewers to post it in the description for tonight's program as well, so that everyone who's watching can see it. And we'll take a look at that with our Latin America team as well. That is really helpful, and thank you. Why don't you, since you brought up your website, why don't you share with our viewers your website, your Facebook page, your Twitter account, so that we know how to follow you and continue to engage with you?
Yeah, my website is victordecurrealugo.com. It's like my name, you know, it's easy. And there you can find there my Facebook and my, you know, my Twitter and everything. victordecurrealugo.com. I let me be proud of myself to say, like, I has been a academic journalist. Not I don't want to do a propaganda. I try always to double check the information to be sure what I say. Unfortunately, most of the web page, as you can imagine, is in Spanish, but it is an English section, and you can use even Google Translator that many people use in order to share with the world my job. I'm planning to put several pictures, but you can use as you want in order to show not only the violence, but also this demonstration, the happiness, the kindness of the people in the street asking for rights.
Well, thank you so much, Victor. Before I let you go, is there anything that you want to say that we haven't touched on this evening?
Well, I did a long list of issues thinking about boring speech, but now, thanks to you, has not been too much boring, at least not for your side. But just let me tell you that we really need it. You cannot imagine the power of USA and the USA society in the Colombian dynamic. Our most important economical exchange is with USA. The political support, you know, and the possibility, the real possibility to touch the government, you know, is the USA society and the USA authorities and the USA media. Please, the USA media has a lot of things to say. I really appreciate it. A friend of mine from, I don't know, Kuala Lumpur decided to support us. Thank you so much and welcome. We are welcome any kind of help from everywhere. But it's more important. The impact will be huge if we receive support from New York, from Washington, from, you know, Philadelphia, for any kind of place. Miami is really important.
Los Angeles.
San Francisco, yes, exactly. Seattle, yeah, exactly. Please send letter to the Minister of Defense, send letter to the President Duque, put in the newspaper, discuss with your neighbors what is going on in Colombia. Really, we are more than a coca producer or a cocaine dealers. We are, before all, human beings. We are human beings suffering for unjust system, and we are suffering the consequences of the long time protracted armed conflict. We need your solidarity. And I remember with all my passion the struggle of the USA citizen during the campaign Black Lives Matters. I demand, I beg, I implore, please don't let us alone. Support us. We will try to do our best. Maybe we fail, but we will try, honestly.
And we will try our hardest to stand in solidarity with you. And I love the 5 points you shared with us. I'm going to share them with our viewers and our many followers. What we as U.S. citizens can do to influence our own government and our own media in the States. And Victor, I so thank you for your time this evening. It has been such an honor to meet you and speak with you. And I would love for you to come back and give us some updates, and so that we can continue to support you and see your face and hear your voice. And please share our program and audience with those of you that you talk to and meet in the streets, that we are interested and very concerned about what's happening with them. But it also is very inspiring to see a nation of people in the streets and demanding and protesting for change for themselves and for their entire nation. It's a lot of violence, we all know, but it's also very inspiring what people organized are capable of doing, the positive things that people are capable of doing. So thank you so much. You want to say something, I can see. Go ahead,
Thank
please.
you, Terry. Thank you for the people who follow this program. We are open to support any kind of media which need interviews or picture or testimonies. We are really ready to help. But this is not only our cause, it's also your cause.
Yeah.
The fight for dignity, the fight against neoliberalism, the fight against inequality is not a problem of the Ecuadorian people alone, or the Brazilian people alone, or the Chilean, or the people in Burma, or in France, or no, it's a universal issue. I think that we should recover this universalism and this solidarity. Please, our cause is also your cause. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I want to remind our audience that you've been watching What the F is Going On in Latin America, Code Pink's weekly YouTube program of hot news out of Latin America and the Caribbean. We have been speaking this evening with Victor de Currea-Lugo. He is a journalist, an author, a doctor. He's been speaking with us live from Bogota, Colombia, and we will be talking with him again for updates as to what's happening in Colombia. You can catch our program every Wednesday on YouTube, on Code Pink YouTube Live, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. Tonight has been a very special edition of our program. And also, please remember to tune in to Code Pink Radio every Thursday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. The program simulcasts on WBAI out of New York City and WPFW out of Washington, D.C. Thank you, everybody. I hope this evening has been very informative for all of you. And thank you again, Victor. An honor and a pleasure to have you with us in conversation tonight.